Hello, and welcome to Can't Find My Brain for the Fog with Kendra
and Gina, discussing love, loss, and life after.
All right, welcome back. We are at week 9. Can you believe we've made it through 9 episodes?
No. We haven't killed each other.
I don't think we're going to kill each other, but hopefully people are still listening.
Yeah, somebody is.
Anyway, we are at week 9, and we were thinking maybe we were going to talk a little bit more about, unexpected feelings. Feelings of loneliness, feelings of overwhelm, things like that.
Things that happen that you do not expect.
Right. And part of this came out of a video that we saw this week. I had shared it with you. From, her name is Heather Quissell. She's on, you can find her on Instagram. She's a widow coach, I think is what she calls herself. And she has a lot of videos pertaining to this because she is also a widow. So she's been through this. And the video was talking about how she was wanting to plant a garden in her backyard. And she had all these really nice raised beds back there. It looked really good. And she said, I've got this idea in my head of what I want to do. But doing it by myself is overwhelming. And she's like 6 years out at this point, too.
Right.
She's not brand new in this. And it really struck both of us as so valid and accurate. Because she was explaining how, just going to the store and trying to carry all these bags of mulch and trying to carry all these plants. It was just too much. And, I could do just one bed, but I really want to do it all. And it's just so frustrating and overwhelming. And it's exactly things that we have said ourselves, right?
I was telling Kendra, little things around the house, like I have a spigot in my house that is all of a sudden leaking.
Right.
Last year, a guy came out and he fixed the spigot. It worked great last year. And all of a sudden it's not working again. And so I called a plumber, and I don't even think he came to look at it, and told me it's going to cost $300 to $400. And I'm like, really? And it's not that I mind paying $300 or $400 if that's really what it costs, but how many times we get taken because people just think, well, you can't fix it yourself. You're by yourself.
Right.
Something that my husband would have fixed easily.
Right.
Somebody wants to charge me $300 or $400 for it. And I'm like, I don't mind paying that if 4 or 5 people tell me that's what, but I really looked at it and think all it needs to be is tightened up.
Right.
But they take advantage. And I can feel her, because it's just little things around the house that he would have done that now I have to pay somebody to do.
Right.
And I don't mind paying them if they're not ripping me off.
But it's just frustrating and annoying.
Very frustrating. And then you start to miss them even more.
Like spraying outside for bugs. Jim always did the bug spraying because I don't like messing with that stuff. Well, he's not here. I don't actually know when the last time we sprayed for bugs is. So it's something that I think my dad did last year for me. He walked around outside and sprayed for me. But that's, that's something. Dealing with critters, because I am a country girl, but I don't like creepy crawlies. Like, that is I can handle a lot of things. I can tolerate certain creepy crawlies, but I just can't.
Yeah.
There's some and I've had a critter in my house trying to drive me crazy, and that has been so frustrating and overwhelming for me, because it's something that it's not a big deal, and I know it's not a big deal, and I know it doesn't mean anything. Like, I live in the country, my house is old, it's probably got holes somewhere, obviously. It's it needs sealed up. But again, it's just a process of I need somebody to go around and look for spots that need sealed up.
You're like designing women. The man should have to kill the bug.
Right.
That's the way it is.
I can handle most things, but some of them I can't. But it's just it's a process. It's well, now I've got this critter and I'm trying to get this critter. I don't want to kill the critter, but I got to catch the critter. But then I'm trying to run the critter out of my house, and then that takes you back to a further step of, well, the only way to really keep them out of your house is to go around and spray and seal up places. And that's overwhelming. Right. It's one more step of things that, and it just gets to be a lot.
It doesn't even need to be it doesn't even have to be a big project. It's just the everyday life that it becomes one thing, and you may cry about taking the trash out, but that's not what really, that just was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Right.
You just get hit with overwhelming things.
Right.
I agree with that.
Right.
And it doesn't have to even be a big thing. And I think it all stems from loneliness.
Right. I do think that's valid. And it's not loneliness in that a loneliness that someone else can feel. We've talked about this before, that for us, the loneliness isn't that we could replace it with someone else. I have great friends, but they're not going to fill that void that Jim had.
True.
You know, my dad is amazing and steps in and helps me, and I'm so lucky because I know not everybody has that, or not everybody has somebody that's willing to help them with things. But also, he can't fill that void. You know, my mom tries to help me do things. Friends of ours try to help me do things, but they just can't fill that void, and they're not here every day in the house.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of little things that add up. You know, I've got some maintenance stuff outside that needs done. And by and large, I did a lot of the, you know, I'm not saying I can't do a lot of maintenance things. I have learned a lot of that stuff, like myself, but it's just a lot for one person when you had someone else to help you.
You had a helpmate, and that's what your husband was, and that's what
they should be. You should be helpers with each other.
I think, to be honest, I was not as helpful because I had a full schedule at work and 4 10-hour days, and sometimes it was 4 12-hour days. And by the time the weekend rolled around, during the winter, my husband had a very flexible job. And so in the winter, he could get a lot of things done while I was working so that we had time to play on the weekends. Right. And now people say, well, why don't you paint your own fence? I'm like, that sounds like a fate worse than death. You know, I mean, I don't want to do that. Right. It's laziness. I know it is, but it's also, I don't know what to buy, and 15 different people will give you 15 different things to do, and you're like, what do you trust? Right. If one person I could really trust would tell me, go get this, go get this, go get this, and paint your fence, that's one thing. But do you power wash it first? Do you let it sit? Do you blah, blah, blah? And it's overwhelming for me to think of. Right. Overwhelming. Absolutely. But it's also overwhelming to have people tell you it's going to cost you $5,000 to do something that your husband would have done for free. Right. And I think Jim was the one that had the heavier schedule. Mm-hmm. So he had the 10 and 12-hour days, you know, for 4 or 5 10-hour days a week, while I had the more flexible schedule. Mm-hmm. And so I think our roles were reversed a little bit there, because there were certain things, you know, I did do a lot of things, but because I had the freedom in my schedule that he did not have. He was like you. He went in early and got home late. Mm-hmm. But it's just hard when you're the one having to do all the decision making. It becomes a decision paralysis of sorts. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, yes.
Because you have to make all these calls. Like, I can do the things, but I didn't know all the calls to make. He would kind of help me figure out what to get, or he would help me go buy it and help me do it, or whatever. And now it's like I have to figure out what it is that I want to do and make the decisions. And, like, you know, I've renovated a room on my house in the last year and a half or so. That was something that I had used some of our savings to do, because it was a room it was horrible. It had been a mess when we bought the house. And it had progressively gotten worse to the point that we couldn't use it because there was mold. Like, the people before had done stuff. It was just bad. And so after Jim died, my dad was like, oh, I'm going to tear it down. We're going to get it fixed for you. Because it was starting to, like, affect me. And making decisions for that room was so much harder than it should have been.
Oh, yeah, I understand that.
Because, like, I went back and forth on the floor. Probably for 3 or 4 months at least. Mm-hmm. And it got to the point where my dad was like, you have to make a decision, because we can't do anything else until we have a floor. Yeah. Like, we have to have a floor so we can move forward. Because I went back and forth of like, well, I'm just going to paint the plywood. And then I was like, I'm just going to do this. And then, you know, his friend that was helping him do it was like, you should just put laminate down. And somebody else was like, you should put LVP flooring down, which is like laminate style. And neither one of those sounded like what I wanted, because I was going to use it for a craft space, and laminate just sounded like a bad idea with, like, the laminate wood stuff. Sounded like a bad idea with that, because the cheap stuff bubbles. I just went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth before I finally settled on what I did. But it was just so overwhelming, because on the one hand, this is the first space in the house that truly is my space that I got to put my name on, but it was the first space in our house that, like, because everything else it is what it is. We never painted anything really when we moved in, as much as I hate my wall color and I want to paint it. We never did any of that. It was already done. But just making all these decisions on my own, it was exhausting.
I like you said, decision paralysis, because two things come to mind. I'm having a door put in. After Tim passed away, some friends put a deck on the back of our house because they knew that was going to be his fall project. Well, I got the cart before the horse. We put the deck on before we put a door in to go out onto the deck. So I got a guy that came highly recommended to come do it. And in the process, he said, well, do you want me to do this, this, that? I'm like, dude, I don't know. I don't know. Do it like it's your house, because I can't tell you what your business is. And don't ask me, do you want to wrap this or flash this or whatever? And so I just want you to tell me how much it's going to cost, and I'll go with it, or I'll get another estimate. But don't ask me what. And then the other thing is, Tim and I wanted to redo our bathroom. It's the only room in the house really that is still kind of antiquated. It's got green linoleum. And so we used to go back and forth kind of bantering about what we wanted to do. And now that I have the ability to do it the way I want it, then I still can't decide.
Right.
So
and I felt
it's not going to get done.
I felt some guilt about that room, actually, because what Jim and I had envisioned the space for that room to be like a Four Seasons room kind of thing, sunroom kind of thing, and that's not really what it ended up being. Yeah. It ended up being more my craft space, because I realized that, he was better at the entertaining part, and I can still use it. I have used it to host a few people over, like have small gatherings, my friend's bridal shower was there, that kind of thing. But it's not the room that we had envisioned, and I did feel a little bit of guilt about that. Like, we had discussed doing it one way, and when I got down to the practicality of it, I wasn't going to be able to do that. I wasn't going to be able to put in that many windows. I wasn't going to be able to do, and so I was like, well, I'm just going to do this because it needs done. Something needs done. This room can't stay in the shape that it's in, and I can't live with a big hole in the back of my house either, and my siding exposed. I can't do that either, so I have to make a decision. And it's not exactly the room that we had talked about doing, but I think it's a useful space. But I do get it. You feel a little bit of guilt because you're like, well, should I do what we talked about? Should I do what he would have wanted? But then, well, no, he's not here now, so it's up to me. I have to make it a space I can live in.
I think it's kind of different. I think the different thing for me is not that. I think that the reason we wanted the deck is so that we could entertain.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, I just don't have the heart for it.
Right. I
don't have the heart because he's not here. And
I agree with that.
Even if I bring his vision, which I'm trying to bring his vision to fruition, I just think am I really going to sit out here and grill?
No.
Probably not, because he's not here.
Yeah.
Even though I want to do it, I just don't. And he would let's go picking out furniture for the deck, picking out lights to put up. It's just the heart is not there.
Right.
And so and then it does get overwhelming to not have somebody to that knows how to set up electricity, and that's hard.
And it gets overwhelming to not have somebody to bounce ideas off of.
Right.
That is something that I don't know how to. I cannot. If you don't understand that, it's hard to make you understand that. Like, I've tried to explain that to people, and I don't know how to put that in words that anybody can understand unless you're. It's one of those experience things that you just have to experience it. Like, but it's hard to not have that person to bounce those ideas off. And Jim would be really bad about, well, whatever you want is fine, honey. Like, he would be that person totally.
Oh, Tim wouldn't. He had an opinion.
he wouldn't necessarily always give me. Sometimes he would, but like about the paint color, he probably would have been like, whatever you want. He would have, green is green, or brown is brown. He didn't see light blue as light blue. He would just say blue is blue. So he wouldn't necessarily care about that, but he was still somebody that could kind of be a sounding board,
right,
and help you make this decision. And now there is no sounding board.
Or I have to say, and it is true, and whether it's sexist or what, but it is true, when you don't have a man calling, people just take advantage like flash.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, I don't know if they do it intentionally, but, Tim could say, hey, mate, no, ain't no way that's going to cost $300. All it is a little nut that needs to be, and I just don't have time to fix it. I can hear him saying that right now, but I'm going, did you even look at the job? And I'm finding out that they didn't, and that really disheartens me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you get taken advantage of there. But my biggest thing is I just don't have the heart. I know things need to be fixed.
Yeah.
Tell me a fair price.
It's hard. And
I know there's other people out there who are disadvantaged. They didn't have if their husband's not handy. But yeah, I get you.
And and I know we've talked about before about like trigger things, and I think that kind of fits with this topic too. And one of the things, I don't know that I've ever mentioned this one, but it is a problem for me. This is one place where I get overwhelmed, is dealing with getting cars fixed.
Oh, yeah.
And not even like, I can more or less be like, okay, it sounds kind of like this, and I'm usually fairly spot on. I just don't know enough to know how to fix anything when it comes to my car. Mm-hmm. But I know enough to be like, this sounds weird, go check that, and I'm usually in the right neighborhood. But I remember the first time, one of the first times I went and got an oil change after Jim passed. Actually, I think it happened like the first 2 or 3 times. I broke down in tears on those poor guys, and I told my friend, I said, they're gonna dread see me coming, because like I had to, we have 2 vehicles. I still have, both of our vehicles, and I literally broke down in tears. I think the first 2 or 3 times, and I don't remember why. I think there was something that they had asked me, and I didn't know, because this was something, Jim normally, all I do is oil change. Like, I didn't normally do all the extra stuff. And anything, before Jim, if my car needed something, it was usually, I would phone call my dad, or I would, I do have a mechanic that I have kind of come to trust. There's a few that I have kind of figured out that I trust, but like, it was one of those things that it was just so overwhelming to get my oil changed, of all things. I to have to do that, and to be like asked all these questions, and I'm like, I don't know. I was trying so hard not to cry, and they were super nice about it. And like, actually, I think I made one of the guys uncomfortable, and he kind of backed away and called somebody else over. But he was super nice about it, and I'll never forget how nice he was to me about it. He's always nice when I go in there, but it was just one of those things that like, I don't know. I don't know the answer to this question.
Yeah,
and the person who knows the answer to this question is not here, and now I'm overwhelmed, and I'm gonna spiral. Like, it's kind of all.
And once you start that downward spiral, you can't stop it.
And you're so embarrassed. You're embarrassed to have this downward spiral happen in a public place, but at the same time, you can't reel it back in at this point. It's already out. It's already out. It has escaped, and it's all you can do to try to reel it back in. But I do think that happens a lot. It's just, and that's something that's really hard to put into words for people who don't know.
You don't realize until you don't have it. And it's not like that. My husband was that it was all about honeydew lists. These were things he really wanted to do, and it wasn't like I needed to get this done, so he was doing it. There were things we wanted to do to make our house a home, and to have hospitality and things like that. And now I'm at the mercy of somebody else to do it. And I'm like, early on, my dad died a year before Tim did, and he probably wouldn't have been capable of doing things for the last 3 years, but my dad was always my fix-it dude. And now my dad's gone and Tim's gone, and I've got friends I can call on, but you hate to do that.
Right. You hate to keep calling the same people, and that's, I mentioned my dad. I hate that I have to keep asking my dad to do these things, because he has his own house.
And it's not really, I don't even want a guy friend to fix it. I just want him to advise me. Right. And I don't want him to just say, call a plumber. I've called a plumber, and a plumber said it's going to cost this. And the guy even went so far to say, and if somebody tells you they can fix it cheaper, they're not going to fix it right. And I'm like, well, I just don't think you really looked at it.
Right.
And I need to text the guy back and say, I need to revisit this. Did you actually come look at it? It doesn't look like, it just looks like.
It looks like it'd be an easier fix than what you're saying.
And I could be totally wrong. Did you actually come look at it?
Yeah.
And if you still tell me it's going to cost this, I'm still going to have to wait, because I'm not spending that money on something that I don't really need right now. I'm just trying to get things fixed so that when I'm old, tomorrow, the things will work. But it does get really overwhelming. Little things, just buy mulch.
Right.
I get what she's saying. And you don't have anybody help you carry it.
Yeah. I don't even put any effort into gardening, which that wasn't really something Jim did a whole lot. Like, we weren't big on the gardening anyway, but like, that's not, I kill things. I don't grow things. At the best, I try to get out there and weed at least once a year just to like keep it under control, but that overwhelms me.
Tim would have put probably turf in the backyard.
Oh,
because in Australia they have turf. But I have a good friend that was my roommate in college, and she's actually helped me do kind of a memory garden for Tim, and she's brought all the plants up, and she even stopped the other day and said, I weeded your garden, and she lives in a town 2 hours away. I'm like, what? So she's guided me and advised me, and that's nice, and that's the kind of help I need. And sometimes I don't mean to say just do it. That's not what I'm trying to say, but tell me exactly what to do.
Yes.
Step by step.
Yeah.
Go by this, go,
Yeah.
and maybe help me get started.
Yeah.
Because I can't understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I get
my mind just it shuts down. 100%.
I know where you're coming from on that too, because I do get easily overwhelmed. My brother's got a green thumb, and I'll text him something, and he'll be like, "Just do that," and it doesn't like I need detailed instructions, so I just don't do anything because I don't know.
I think that's why I just look for somebody else to pay to do it because I want it done correctly. Mm-hmm. Because Tim was a perfectionist, mm-hmm. and I want it done so I can be proud of it. Mm-hmm. I don't trust myself to do it that well. Mm-hmm. But I said, I want it to be economical and affordable, and I don't want to feel like when I'm done, somebody goes, "Oh man, you could have done this for a whole lot less." So, don't tell me that. Don't say, even if you think I could, don't say that, because then I'm overwhelmed again.
Right, and I think I found myself in the last 2 years, which this might verge into the topic of money. We'll have to discuss that down the road too, of like careful money spending. But I think I might have, one thing I've noticed myself doing, is that whole, I'm starting to realize I can pay people to do things. Like, if I do have the money, it's okay. I don't have to do it myself if I can pay. Mm-hmm. Like my trash. We don't get trash pickup here in my town. We have to pay for it separately. And there's not like one citywide trash pickup place. Or you can take it for free to the convenience center down the road, out of town. And forever, that's what we would do. When Jim was here, we would take the trash. We'd gather it up every once in a while, and we'd take us a load of trash together to the dump. But after he left, I started getting I was having a hard time staying on top of it. But yet at the same time, I felt guilty paying somebody to do this thing that I could do for free. Like, I was having that overwhelmed guilt of I could do this for free. Why am I going to pay somebody to do it? But finally last year, I just broke down. I was like, I can't do this. I can't stay on top of it. And it wasn't even it's just me here. I'm only accumulating maybe 1 or 2 bags a week, tops. Mm-hmm. With the cat, maybe a little bit more. And, maybe I'm up to 2 now because I have the cat and I have to scoop every day.
You don't have that choice in the town I live in. You pay for it
whether
you use it or not.
It's built into your water.
It's built into your water.
But eventually I did. I broke down and I found some money and I paid $20 a month, which really isn't that much in the span of things. But I do. I pay him $20 a month to pick it up every week. And I felt some guilt about that at first because I was like, why am I going to pay for this to be done for free? But at the same time, it was getting overwhelming because I would skip, and then I'd get another week, and then I'd skip another week, and then I'd skip another week. And I didn't want to haul it in the car. I was wanting to haul it in my van because my van's, in rough shape anyway. Ain't nothing going to hurt it. Or I was waiting for my dad to come with his truck and, somebody that I could get a truck from to haul it for me. And it just became too much. Like, I paid a friend of mine a couple times for her grandkid to take it for me. But again, it's just the little things that build up. It's the little things that build up.
Little things that nobody else thinks mean anything.
But. Yeah, and I finally was just like, I can't stay on top of this. Mm-hmm. And I had several people that were like, oh, I'll pick it up for you. I don't care. Just let me know where you live, and we'll just pick it up when we take ours. And that's really nice. But at the same time, that adds a different layer of guilt, because then I'm like, well, now I'm making you do this thing that I should be doing, that my husband would help me do. I think that's where my guilt comes from.
I got that, you say garbage, it's kind of funny, because that was one of, I did it occasionally, but that was one of Tim's Thursday night things. Our garbage goes off on Friday.
Yeah.
So he would always take the garbage to the curb. On Thursday night, so it was ready on Friday morning. Sometimes he'd forget, sometimes we'd both forget, and we'd be like, oh, we missed trash pickup. Right. But we didn't have that much. We didn't eat that much at home. But when Tim passed away, the first thing I said to a friend of mine, I said, do you think I could pay your husband to come take my trash out on Thursday nights? Then I thought, you dummy, lazy thing.
I don't.
And I know, but and the truth is, it was just overwhelming at the time. Yeah. Now I'm like, I'm on it. Sometimes I still forget, but I don't have that much. But it's so funny that it's the small things that, like I said, I have a breakdown every time I go to Lowe's.
Right. And I don't think we beat ourselves up for, being perceived lazy. Like both of us, with the trash of, I'm being lazy, I could just do it myself, right? But I don't think it's laziness. I do think it's overwhelm. And I think it maybe isn't decision paralysis, but I do think the overwhelm leads to a different kind of paralysis. Like, and then it makes it difficult to do things that should be basic and simple and easy to do.
Yeah, I think too, I don't think people realize this. I'm just starting to realize this. A friend of mine told me after her son died, I mean, she was physically sick from grief. And I am starting to feel what I didn't recognize is I do feel physically achy sometimes because of grief. And my body just doesn't go. And okay, I keep saying, well, maybe I'm older. And we say in our last episode, we said we've aged since our husband's died. But the overwhelming, I mean, it just lays a burden on you. And I was just thinking of something I read that said, your absence by far is the heaviest weight I've had to carry. And that's the best. There's this weight on you of grief and darkness. And so then weigh that with trying to make a decision with nobody there beside you to make it. And people probably look at me like, you're so dumb. Yeah. But it's just so, only probably people in our boat can understand it. Right. Thankfully that they can't understand it, because I don't want them to be there.
Goes back to that statement that we've made
before. And we're pretty independent women. So if you weren't an independent woman, oh gosh.
But that's that statement we've made before. We referenced Michelle Baumgart's statement of like, I wish I could give you my
experience without point of view without you,
my perspective without my experience. Yes, it goes back to that point of, I wish I could gift you the perspective without you having to go through this experience I've gone through. But yeah, and it is like, and Jim wasn't necessarily, because of his schedule, he couldn't necessarily do a lot of things. But, one of those things that does get overwhelming, I've got things outside my house that need doing. I've got debris out there that I need to collect, and brush that I've got piled up, and it's all things I could do. But it just gets so overwhelming on the list of everything else that I have to do that it gets hard to do. And I'm actually going to pay somebody to come help me because of that. Because it gets overwhelming.
Somebody told me, and it's a great idea. Somebody said, well, you just have some people over and say, let's do this. And I'm thinking, all my friends are just as busy as me. Right. So, and if I could find a trusted kid, I guess the great thing is I need to start looking at my blessings, because I do have such a support system, and I do have people I can call. But the thing is, like you said, people don't realize it just, you get tunnel vision. Yeah. And you just can't see. And you just need people to kind of give you options and ideas.
It reminds me, I saw this I can't remember if it was a video. It was this lady talking about how, and she's not a widow, she was just somebody, who was talking about how she had this pile of rocks in her house. And the pile of rocks was just there. And eventually she was like, we need to get these rocks moved. So she made a party out of it. And invited all her friends, and everything was rock themed. Like they had food that was rock themed, and everybody was the idea was everybody pick a rock and help us move it. And they spread the rock out, and she said it was all done within an hour because everybody pitched in and helped. Yeah. Because it had been this overwhelming thing that they had tried to get people to come and help them move it. They tried to pay for people, and it just was not, it was either too expensive or it just didn't work out. And so I think sometimes if we would do our, rely on our community more, it might be less overwhelming. But sometimes that in itself, we've talked about asking for help being hard. Relying on your community can be hard because you feel a little guilty, you feel a little lazy, you feel a little whatever.
You feel like you should pay people to do something. Right. But then I think about, what would my husband do if one of my, this is something that just came to me, if one of my friends was the widow. Yes. I hate that word. If one of my friends was in this boat, I would gladly, every day let my husband go over and fix the spigot.
Right.
So I guess I need to think, if I was not the person,
Right.
would I, and I know my husband would in a heartbeat have picked up the slack for any of his mates that went on. He
Right.
would have gladly picked up the slack. I think about one time how proud he was. One time a friend of his called him. He had run into a mailbox and a lady had said, he went up and he goes, I'll pay to get this fixed. And the lady goes, no, I don't want you to pay to get it fixed. I want you to fix it because I can't find anybody to do anything. The lady was a widow.
Right.
And think about foreboding. And my husband was so proud that his friend called him to help him come fix this mailbox.
Yeah.
And so I know, and maybe I just need to say that out loud before, because I need to do that more, because I know my husband would have done it.
It reminds me of something that my therapist tells me often, because this is a common conversation I have with my therapist about how I have a hard time accepting help, and I want to pay people to help, and I have a hard time accepting help. And she reminds me that people offer to help, or people help because they want to help, and I need to allow people to help,
Right?
because that is for them as much as it's for me.
Right. Exactly.
And I have a hard time. I have a neighbor. Like, I paid somebody to mow my yard last year, and I was going to pay somebody to mow my yard this year. But I have a neighbor next door that every time he mows his yard, he just swings around and does my yard, which doesn't take, he has 0 turns, so it takes like 20 minutes tops.
Yeah, right.
My yard is not that big. But I feel so bad and guilty that my neighbor does it. Like, I've tried to offer to pay him, and his wife's like, no, don't worry about it. He loves mowing. He loves it. He'll just swing by and do yours. And I feel guilty about it. Like, one year I bought him a gift card just because.
Make him cookies. Yeah, you know.
I got him like a Kroger gift card or something one year because I was like, just to say thank you for, that was the year, I think it was the year Jim died, because they had done a lot of stuff like that for me. They just randomly done stuff. Like, come home one day and my yard was mowed, or I come home one day and somebody had weed eated, or I come home and somebody picked up brush, and it was them doing stuff for me.
I think I just need to say that out loud, that I realized just came to my head. You know, he would have done this for any of his friends.
And so we need to be willing to accept the help. And
I just need to say, you know, do you mind just coming by and looking and giving me advice? Overwhelming. Oh yes, we're overwhelmed every day. Every day.
I think, and this is a good quote that fits in with that. It fits in with that. It's called grief. It says, grief is like the ocean. It comes on waves, ebbing and flowing. Sometimes the water is calm and sometimes it's overwhelming. All we can do is learn to swim. It's by Vicki Harrison.
Sometimes I think I am not swimming. I am treading water.
Yeah, and I think sometimes all you can do is tread water. You just focus on keeping your head above the waves and do the best you can. And I do think that some days I feel like some days I swim better than other days.
Oh yeah.
Last week was a hard week for me. It was an overwhelming week. I cried I don't know how many times because I was not feeling well. I've got a dental issue going on. I had this, I had that, I had, all these things compounding at the same time. And it was just one of those weeks where I just was in a state of overwhelm all week long.
Yeah,
I cried so much.
You had an anniversary, and I had my wedding anniversary was last Thursday.
And my anniversary was actually the week before, but I think it kind of I hadn't given myself time to process that, and it caught up to me. Like, it all just caught up to me.
It does. It doesn't seem like it can come one at a time.
No.
Yeah. A medical diagnosis comes. Bill comes due you didn't expect. Finishing the estate. Wedding anniversary. Wedding anniversary actually came and went very pleasantly because people were very, very kind and got ahead of it, and I got ahead of it, and I worked. Had some friends go to dinner with me, so appreciative. We just had a great conversation. It's just, like we said, the hard days sometimes come easier than the every day. And then, the Easter Sunday was hard for me. But
sometimes those easy days, those supposed easy days, are the days when it gets most overwhelming because it's all the tedious things piling up.
Yeah.
And I know that happens anyway. Like, in everybody's life, tedious things pile up and it gets to be hard. But we don't have that safe person to go to to help make that load easier.
Yeah.
And for the people who don't have that safe person, I see you, I feel for you, I understand, and if your safe person is not a safe person, I hate that for you, and I wish I could help you with that, because
if your safe person is not a safe person, you need to find a new person. Yes,
find a new safe person.
Yeah, I think. I really don't have much more to say on that subject other than
I think we've covered
just
it.
It's okay to be overwhelmed, and like I just realized, talking it out really helps.
This is why I love therapy.
Huh?
So this is why I love therapy.
That's why I love therapy. Well, this is therapy for us. This is why we're doing this podcast. This is therapy. Whether you listen or not, we are therapeutic. I mean, I just came up with an epiphany. I'm loving it. I'm having an epiphany that I just realized that it's like almost, Tim's saying to me, Gina, honey, Regina Ryan, I would do this for anybody. So I know they'll do it for you. Yeah.
Sometimes we need to have those moments, right?
I like it. But yeah, so I'm
Thank you for listening to our therapy session.
I'm Roger Wilco, over and out.
Thank you for listening to this week's therapy session.
Thank you.
So next week, before I cut this off, next week is going to be our 10th episode.
Yeah.
So
it's like the 100th episode of a TV show.
It's a big deal for us. We're pretty excited. I hope that you're enjoying it. If you have an idea, something you want us to talk about that day, that might just be a mental health check-in week. We don't know. We might just wing it that week. We might not have a topic. But
that's kind of what we do anyway. What are you talking about? We have a topic, but we go off of it.
We never stay on topic. We chase rabbits, as my mom used to say about our pastors.
Thank you for listening. And if you feel alone, and you don't have to be even in our situation. If you feel alone and somehow this finds you, I trust God. Somebody's going to find this that gets something, and they just maybe need a friend. Reach out.
Yeah. Maybe we can be your friends through
we'll be everybody's
through
friend.
the podcast. We'll be your podcast friends. So, anyway, we hope you're enjoying it.
Yeah.
Shoot us your ideas if you have any.
Yeah. I like
questions.
We'll talk to you next time.
Yep, we'll be back for week 10 next time.
Woo-hoo.
But this is the close of week 9. So, thanks for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in to Can't Find My Brain for the Fog, discussing love, loss, and life after with Kendra and Gina. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and look for new ones each week. We're going to shoot for Mondays. If you would like to give us some feedback, or maybe leave us a topic idea or question, you can find us on Instagram, Can't Find My Brain for the Fog, and we would love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in.